Hey, what's up, guys? Nate from Project H2O Aquatics, and today we will be going over African dwarf frogs. These creatures are relatively child friendly. They're a very commonly seen house pet for when it comes to reptiles for kids. You could have them. Most teachers use them as don't mind that. Most teachers use them as classroom pets to educate their students on how a reptile grows or the lifespan from tadpole to frog, and yeah, that's that. But they typically live from 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. I would keep the temperature right in that medium, so you're not constantly fluctuating their temperatures because, like other fish, African dwarf frogs have a thin lining in the sides of their bodies that let them detect vibrations, and they are very sensitive to temperature in their environment. So these are my frogs right here. I can pretty sure that is, yeah, that's Leo. Leo's hyper. He is a very hyper frog. We're looking for Zoe. And it's probably going to be hard to find her because she doesn't want to get found. Oh, there she is. There's Zoe. She's right there. She's a chunky girl. She's the biggest African dwarf frog I've ever had. Keep in mind, these are babies. They could grow up to 3 inches long, so they could be about as long as a finger. So that's pretty cool. Do not mistake these for the African clawed frogs. They look almost exactly similar, but their snouts with African dwarf frogs are more pointier. And do not mistake them for African clawed frogs, because African clawed frogs grow up to 6 times these dudes' sizes. So, yeah, they get way bigger. They make these guys look like puny little ants to them. But, we'll be doing another video on this tank soon. I'm going to be getting a goldfish, and after that video is done, I'm actually planning on buying like a cheap 20-gallon tank, 10-gallon tank to store these guys in. I will not be, friendly tip for you people who are just starting to get into the whole fish and reptile thing. Do not mix goldfish with any other species besides goldfish, because goldfish carry a certain bacteria that these guys do not like, and it'll make them sick as well as other fish. So yeah, pro tip: do not mix goldfish with any other species of reptile, fish, or amphibian. Don't do that. The cool thing about these guys actually is that they're very beta friendly. These guys just like to chill out, stay still. Takes them 20 minutes. Every 20 minutes they come up for air, so they usually just chill and wait for their food. They don't really move around much unless, like right now, they're mostly active at night. The betas, they usually leave them be. Okay, with a beta, you have to understand, they're Chinese fighting fish, and they have personalities. Oh, he just came up for air. You just saw that. But betas have personalities, and they tend to be very chill, or they could tend to be very aggressive. So if you have a beta that has been subjected to messing with other betas or any other fish in your household or wherever you're starting your aquatics at, I wouldn't necessarily mix them together. That would be like mixing 2 other boy betas together, and that isn't good. Another fun fact about African... Oh, snap. I scared him a bit. This is the table that I have him on, so bear with me. Scared the crap out of him. But, jeez, I lost my train of thought. That's nice. Well, actually, I just remembered. Okay, so African dwarf frogs are known to sing. That may seem really, really weird to hear and say, but they do sing. It kind of sounds like an electronic humming in the middle of the night. They do it in the middle of the night. I've never heard of anyone hearing them during the day, and if you personally have heard, your African dwarf frogs from chirping, croaking, whatever you want to call it during the day, put those likes and comments down below. I'm very interested because I have not heard these guys sing at all. And one's male. So the males are typically more active at night and they tend to sing more, but the females don't necessarily do that. This is Leo. That's the female. You can typically identify if they're a male or female by the little black bumps in their arms, if Leo would let me get close enough to him. So if you look at Zoe, she does not have those white bumps. But if you look at Leo, let's see if we can get him in the camera. Typically, I wouldn't be opening this lid because African dwarf frogs tend to be really good con and escape artists. So that's that. So here's a good little view. So if you look at Leo's arms, there's little tiny black bumps. And those little tiny black bumps, those little tiny white bumps indicate behind his forearms, indicate that he's a male. The females, however, do not have that. Oh, look, they're butt buddies now. Okay, but in all seriousness, these two plants are actually fake. They're imitation plants. But I do recommend when you have a tank like this, these are not permanent at all. I'm trying to get my frogs out of these tanks as fast as possible because they need room to grow. Right now they're fine because they're not even as long as my pinky. So if I were you guys, I would get a little house plant. Typically, see, like right here, this house plant is growing another leaf and it's unraveling. Typically a house plant because they don't need a lot of light to grow and they can just grow in water. They don't really need soil. So that's really cool. Eventually this will just turn into a whole vivarium and everything will just be plants off of that one little plant. But it'll take a few months, but it'll do that. I added this little pink plant to complement the second plant because before I had put Zoe in here, it was just Leo. Zoe, however, is a frog that I adopted from a family member because this frog, Zoe, the female, was in shock and she wasn't doing too well by herself. And typically, African dwarf frogs are known to do better with playmates. They're a very social frog. So if you ever get African dwarf frogs, do not just get one. Get a second frog because that frog's going to get depressed and it's going to isolate itself, and that's not good because you want to keep your frogs. These frogs live 3 to 5 years, but I have heard cases of them living 10 plus years. They live forever. Like, trust me, like after a while you won't even notice they're there anymore because they live so long. They're very cool to have around. They spend 99% of their lives underwater, and every once in a while they'll come up to get air every 20 minutes and then they'll go back down. I forget the name of it, but there's a certain acronym for it, but they're a specific type of frog that cannot stay out of water or below low humidity standards for more than 15 to 20 minutes because their skin is very sensitive and it dries out very fast. They're like snails in a way. You can't just keep them out of the water. Although they'll live for a bit, they'll die because they'll get stressed. So that's that. African dwarf frogs, they're really cool, but me personally, I would put them in a vertical environment. I wouldn't put them like this because they also like to just shoot up. And if you get like a little stone and you build it up, they'll like to just chill on top of that stone and poke their head out. They don't necessarily like to fully submerge themselves in the water when they're chilling at the top. They just like to poke their head out and get some air while keeping their bodies completely covered in water. That way they can breathe out of the water and get some fresh air but keep their body moist. So that's very cool. When building one of your tanks, see, as you can tell, my rock distribution is very thin over here with my shell. And over here, if you pay attention, there's a lot more rocks. So African dwarf frogs, they tend to isolate themselves, like I said earlier in the beginning of the video. And like I said, you can see there, they actually like to hide between the leaves, which is really neat which is good because even though they are a predator, there are other predators, bigger frogs that are bigger than them. That makes them prey. And they like to chill behind these leaves, in between these leaves. We got both of them over there, but African dwarf frogs aren't typically known to be able to see very well. They're actually very nearsighted. And so like say an African dwarf frog sitting right there. Say Leo's right there, or Zoe. And I drop a piece of food all the way over here. He or she is not going to see that piece of food drop because they are so, okay, let's put it this way. They're blind as a bat. They can't see. So as you can see right now, they're actually bottom feeders. Because they don't have the eyesight to look for their food and snap at it, like I said, they use those ultrasonic gills that send electrical signals to the brain that detect vibrations and detect their surroundings on the ground, so they can pick up food and bottom feed, which is really neat about them because, as you can see here, you could drop little pellets, and eventually they'll just crawl and they'll eat those pellets. Most of the time some pellets will just dissolve and go everywhere, and that's fine. If you see a little bit of buildup from your pellets, that's alright, but not too much because then the water will get foggy. But a little bit of pellets is fine because they'll come down and eventually just swoop it up. But I do want to note that if you pay attention to these rocks, they're a lot bigger than what that frog can put in his mouth. And that's a very good reason because say you have some rocks that are a lot smaller than these. Any smaller than these rocks, and that's dangerous for the rocks because they can mistake a rock as a piece of food, and they can choke on the rock, and they'll constipate themselves, and that's not good because then that leaves a stomach failure and organ failure. Then what do you know? You got a dead dwarf frog. That's not good. So make sure you use specific gravel. If you guys want to see exactly what gravel I'm using, it's just some basic gravel. Pretty chunky, but not too small, not too big. Really like this gravel. It's bioluminescent, so if you get like a neon light and you put it on your gravel, it'll light up like really bright pink, which is really cool. But alright guys, that about does it for this video. I'm glad you guys got to see my very first video on this channel, and I'm glad you guys got to see my dwarf frogs. I actually got them not even like 2-3 days ago, and I love them very much. They are a very interesting pet, and I do not regret buying these little guys at all. You could buy them for $4 to $6 at PetSmart, depending on their age and their size. But yeah, all right, guys. Project A2L Aquatics. It was fun seeing you guys. I will see you guys later.